Okay, what I'd like to do is talk about how to move in the game in a little more detail. These are simple moves, jumping and warping. Those are the three kinds of moves that you can make in the game. And of course, you roll the Vegas die here, you roll the six-sided die to determine how many moves you get to make. And then each one of those moves can either be a simple move, a jump, or a warp. Okay? Now, first of all, let's pretend that we started off at 7. Okay, so we start off at 7, and you can, of course, in one move you can move ahead to 8, or from 7 you can move back to 6. That would be a simple move. Okay. Now, so a simple move is pretty easy to understand. You know, it's just whatever the next space is. Now, for the next step up, the next more complicated move is a jump. Let's go back to 7. Now 7 is a round green bubble. The space is a bubble. It's a prime number. Anyway, the space is a bubble. So the next place that you find a round green 7, and all 7s are going to be round and green. So saying round and green is the same thing as saying 7, is up here at 14. So I can jump to this next place, okay? Now, and I can keep doing that. The next place that has a 7, let's see where that is. Not here, not here, not here, not here. Here we go. 7 and 3 is 21, okay? So I can jump to the next 7 again. That's another simple jump, okay? And then again, I can go up to the next place that has a 7 is here. I can jump up to 28, okay? So that's a symbol of jumping, okay? Now, you might figure out that every other space has a 2. So you're really only going to ever need to do a simple move one time. Because after you do a simple move, say I'm on 7, I do a simple move to 8, or I do a simple move to 6, and right then I've picked up a 2. Okay, there's a 2 and a 3 on 6, which means I can jump to 4 and 8. So you can start jumping right away. You're always one simple move away from being able to do a jump by a 2, okay, or something bigger. Okay, now let's talk about warping. Oh, and by the way, let's say we do a simple move to 6. Okay, so here we are at 6. And we now have a 2 and a 3. Now the 2 and 3 mean that I can jump to the next 3, which is 9, or the previous 3, which is 3. Okay? And with the 2, I can jump to the 4, or I can jump ahead to the 8, which is the next place that has a 2. Okay? Now, with jumps, you can't go any further than the next place. Now let's look at the next kind of move, which is a warp. Okay, and a warp is where we take multiple bubbles. Now in 6 we have a 2 and a 3. What happens if we use the 2 and the 3 together to make a move? Okay, let's try and find the next place on the board that has both a 2 and a 3. Here we go. Okay, this one has lots of 2s. This one has 3. And 2. Here we got 2 and 3. Okay, so we can warp up to 12 right there. Okay. Now, another warp that we could do is that we use 2 2s. On the 12 there are 2 2s. That means we can warp ahead to this next space that has 2 2s. It has 4 2s. Actually, 4 means you have 2. 1, 2, 2, 3, 4. Or we could go back to this space, which has 3 2s. So it has, having 3 means it has 2 2s as well, right? So we could warp like this. Okay. All right. So that's the way the warping works. So let's review a little bit. Simple move. I'm sitting here. I can move ahead to that, or back to that space, or ahead to this space. Simple move. All right. Now a jump means I can take, say, I got a 3. I can jump back to the previous 3, or jump ahead to the next 3. Okay. All right. Now let's try doing a jump to back to our old friend 14, which has a 2 and a 7 on it. We can, and we're sitting on a 2, 2, 3, so it means we can jump. We don't have to go to 13. We can just skip 13 completely, jump straight to 14. And now we've got a 2 and a 7. Now we've seen this before. Where's the next space that has a 2 and a 7? We go ahead, we've got lots of 2s, 2s, 2s. Here's a 7, but it has a 3, which means if we use both our 2 and our 7, we can skip this guy and skip that space and go ahead to, aha! Here's the next space on the board that has a 2 and a 7. And it's also got another 2, but it has a 2 and a 7. And it's the first space that has the 2 and a 7. So we can jump all the way up there. Okay? And that's how warping works. So we did a warp from 14 to 28. All right? And we can do that because they both have 2s and 7s, and there's no space in between that also has a 2 and a 7. It's the next place you find a 2 and a 7. Now, some of you may be asking yourself or noticing, this is basically learning the multiplication tables, okay? Because if you've got 7, 14 is 2 times 7, 21 is 3 times 7, 20 is 4 times 7, and it continues on. Okay, 5 times 7 is 35. Okay, now, but you don't have, you're learning them sort of indirectly, because the object of the game is to get rings, is to move around the board as quickly as possible to find those rings, and the way you do it, the rules that you're following when you're doing it, is you're staying on one or other multiplication table. Okay? And when, like say, I get to 35, I decide I'm going to go to 40, okay, because I've got a 5 now. I jump to 5. I call that changing lanes, because what I've done is I was doing 7s, and then I pick a 5, and I need a 5. Say I've got a ring on 40 I want to get. I change lanes, and I'm going by 5s now. So now I'm on 5 multiplication tables. I was at 7 times 5. And now I'm at 8 times 5. And I was at 4 times 7, and now I'm at 5 times 7. And then I change lanes with the 5 and go there. And you don't have to remember change lanes. It's just a term I like to use. And what this tells what the player learns is that the number 35 is part 5 and it's part 7. Okay? It's on both multiplication tables. And that's one thing they don't teach in school, and they make you memorize all those lists. All right, so that's what we got. Simple moves, just move from one space to the next space. Jumping, where you got one bubble and you jump to the next place that has that same bubble, or back. And then warping, where you're in a space that has two or more bubbles. You can use as many bubbles as are available to jump to the next space that has that same combination of bubbles. Okay? So that's simple move, jumping, and warping. And each mark on the six-sided die is one move, and that each move can be either a simple move, a jump, or a warp. They're all the same value. All right, so that's how to jump, warp, and simple move in So-Soo-Yoo.